Young+Free. 2 weeks. No, I guess I'm doing sand sling today, but nobody pop me in the shoulder, please, because my doctor, I don't know if he approved. But 2 weeks ago, Rachel gave a message discussing the big lie our culture teaches young people. That'd be you. That freedom is all about doing whatever you feel like. Whether that's partying, alcohol, drugs, sex, whatever. Just do whatever you feel like. That's what true freedom is, according to our culture. However, the Bible makes it clear that doing whatever your sin nature tells you is the exact opposite of freedom. And it's actually slavery. So if you follow the lie that our culture tells us that doing whatever you want to do leads to true freedom, that's a lie, and it's actually going to lead you to enslavement to what is known as your sin nature. We talked a lot about that last week. And we talked last week also about how true freedom is only found in Jesus Christ. Because He is the only one who can free us from the enslavement of sin. Today's message as we wrap up this series is called Free to Become. So write that at the top of your notes. If you're new to J.High, we take notes during sermon. You look around, people are focusing. We're not on our phone texting or anything like that. We're not distracting our neighbors. We're focused. This is a learning environment. So the majority of you come here, you want to learn and grow in your faith. So make sure you take good notes. One, that helps you pay attention. Two, it'll also help you remember the message so that you can impress your parents when you get in the car and they ask, what did you learn today? So Free to Become. We're going to start today with one of my favorite verses of all time in the Bible. And it's Jeremiah 29:11-12. It says this. All on the screen. For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. They are plans for good, and not for disaster. To give you a future and a hope. In those days when you pray, I will listen. If you look for me wholeheartedly, with all your heart, you will find me. That's a promise from God. So from this, we get our first point today, J.High. Write it down. Number one, Jesus wants what is best for you. Jesus wants what is best for you. Everybody look to your neighbor and tell your neighbor, Jesus wants you to have joy. Look to your neighbor. Jesus wants you to have joy. Jesus wants you to have joy. Jesus wants what is best for you. See, Jesus knows you better than anyone else because He created you for a unique purpose. The Bible tells us that He knows how many hairs are actually on your head. He has them numbered. You and your parents don't even know that. God knows you better than anyone else, and He has a good plan for your life. He has a plan and a purpose for you. See, a lot of people believe the lie that some people tell that Jesus and God just want, it's all about rules, and all these rules are just to make us miserable in life. But it's a lie. It's a lie. For one, people are like, yeah, you Christians, you have all these rules. Yeah, we do, but they're for our own benefit. The reason God set all these rules and told us not to do these sins is to protect us, because He wants what's best for us. He wants to protect us from our sin nature. Some people say things, I've heard a story like this, like, people are like, well, I give my life to God, but I'm so afraid that He's going to make my life miserable if I follow His plan for my life, because I just know He's going to send me as a missionary to Africa, and I really don't want to live in Africa. That's the kind of thing some people say. But guess what? If God didn't create you to be a missionary in Africa, He's not going to send you to Africa. Because He has a plan and a purpose for you. He wants you to have joy and fulfillment and to become the man or woman He made you to be. Jesus wants to give you joy, fulfillment, and hope. Now this doesn't mean that you're going to be rich, famous, and have an easy life if you follow Jesus' plan. But as we read in Jeremiah 29, Jesus did promise to never leave you when you seek Him with all your heart. He'll always be there for you, in the good times and the bad. And J.High, I promise you this. You will never be fully satisfied in life until you fully, that is 100%, not 99.9, that is 100%. You go all in with Jesus until you fully surrender your life to Jesus and follow His will for your life, because that is the only way to fulfill your true purpose. See, if you do what you want to do, what your sin nature tells you to do in life, I want to do what I want to do. I want to be rich and famous. If that's what our culture tells us, that is success, to be rich and famous. If you follow that, and if that's not God's plan for your life, you're not going to find true happiness and fulfillment. Some of the most depressed, sad people in the world are celebrities and actors. They have all the money in the world. They have all the success by the world's parameters. But they're self-medicating with drugs and other substances, alcohol, because they're depressed. They're trying to kill themselves. Philip Seymour Hoffman, famous actor, just found dead a few weeks ago in his apartment. From what? Drug overdose. Hates his life. Just wanted to end it. Make the pain go away. He's successful on the world side. Why? Why is he not really happy? If he has everything the world says he's to be happy, he's got fame, money, why isn't he happy? He didn't find his purpose in life. Because he's not a Jesus follower. That can only be found by following the purpose that Jesus has for your life. That's the only way to be truly happy and joyful and fulfilled and to find purpose, is by following God's will for your life. And the reason I tell you that I promise, I don't say that a lot, the reason I use such a strong word to say that I promise that you won't be truly happy and fulfilled unless you follow God's plan for your life, is because I've seen that in my own life. I'm practicing what I'm preaching here. I'm not a hypocrite. I've seen this in my own life. Some of you have heard this story before. I tell it once in a while here in J.High. My calling to the ministry, when God told me to be a pastor. And those of you who have heard this story before know that that was not my plan. When I was a freshman back in 2001, yes, I'm old. Yes, I just turned 32. I'm old, yes. Actually, my mom and my brother are here today watching. I'm old. So way back in 2001, I was in college. It's depressing because some of you weren't born yet. All right. Back in the fall of 2001, I was a freshman in college at Indiana Wesleyan University. The one thing I knew is that I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. That was the only thing I was sure about. I was what they called an undeclared major. Basically, you had no clue what you wanted to do. I wasn't worried about it though, because I was raised by my mom and by my youth pastor to be taught that God has a plan for my life and He'll let me know in His perfect timing. So I wasn't worried about it. I wasn't stressing. And I took this class for undeclared majors called Life, Calling, and Leadership. And we took all these personality tests and everything. And they say, in this situation, how would you respond? And I go, I'm a 19-year-old guy. I haven't experienced most of these situations. So I would like to think this is how I do it. That's not how you're supposed to answer these tests, because I didn't know myself that well, so they never really They always say, these tests would say, you should be a biologist. I'm like, I hate science. I don't think this is going to work for me. It didn't work. And so by the end of the semester, I go, forget these tests, forget all this. I'm just going to do what I think God wants me to do. And I look back at my childhood, and the one thing that I really wanted to do as a kid is to be a police officer. I have lots of good stories. My brother Alex will tell you. I would dress up in my police officer uniform. I had a flasher and everything. And I would tackle him. I had handcuffs. And when he was a little kid, he'd be crying. I'm like, shut up. And I'd put my knee into his back. And I actually watched all the cop shows, so I knew how to actually handcuff him. And he'd be screaming. I'm like, shut up, get in there. Get him in, It was a lot of fun. And I'm like, you know what? I had a lot of fun. I thought that'd be a cool thing to drive around in a police car with a gun on my hip. Be kind of a cool thing. Exciting, adventurous. And I said, maybe God gave me that dream as a kid. Maybe that's God who put that in my heart to tell me I should be a police officer. That was the only thing I could really think that I really wanted to do with my life. And so I started really seriously looking at that. And by the end of the semester, I was all set to change my major to criminal justice, which is the cop major. And I met with the head of the department. I was ready to do all my paperwork, become a criminal justice major. And I was really excited about it. I was getting ready to do my ride-along with a police officer. It was going to be awesome. And then God decided to change my plans, as He's done many times since then. Because at the end, the week before finals, before I went home for Christmas, we had to meet at the end of the course to finish the course. We had to meet with a course-assigned life coach. That was the name they gave me, a life coach. Everybody had a different life coach. Mine was a woman named Latrice. She was a really fascinating woman. She was an alternate on the 1992 U.S. Olympic team, and her husband played for the Green Bay Packers, and so a really cool person, really strong woman of God. I'd only met her like once, though. I didn't really know her that well. And I had to go meet with her, and from what I'd heard, when you meet with your life coach, what happens from other students is that you walk in with your papers, it's like a 5-minute meeting, they go, we looked over all your personality profile tests, all your psychology tests, everything, and we think that because God has given you these intrinsic skills and giftings, that because we're a Christian university, we think God is the one that gave you those psychological profile, those intrinsic skills and motivations. So this is probably the career that God has given you. This is the calling, the job He's called you to do for your life. And so most people are like, I want to be a nurse, or I want to be a doctor, or I want to be a teacher. And then usually the life coach just goes, yeah, that's perfect. All right, I think that's where God might be calling. Keep praying about that, but I think that's a good, strong possibility. Go ahead and enter that major. So I thought that was what my thing was going to do. So I walked in, and I'm like, all right, got finals next week. All right, this should be a quick meeting. Latrice lived right off campus at Indiana Wesleyan, so I just walked over to her house and met in her kitchen. Her little kids are running around the house and playing and stuff. Totally unprepared and unaware that this was going to be a defining day in my life, where the entire trajectory of my life changed. And that's what you have to be prepared for. Sometimes that's what God does. You're not ready for it. And I wasn't. I was like, what? So I walked in, sat down at her kitchen table. She had all my papers from the entire semester in front of her, all my test results and everything, my personality profiles. And she took a deep breath and went, that's not a good thing. That's never a good thing when somebody takes a deep breath before they start talking to you. So you know this maybe from your own parents. And I was like, okay. And she goes, Adam, I've been praying a lot about you for the last week. Oh, okay. I barely know you. Okay. Okay. Adam, I feel strongly led by the Lord to tell you something. Okay, I'm getting nervous now. What is it? I know you want to be a police officer. I've read all your paperwork. I've read all your test results. But Adam, I feel strongly told by the Lord to let you know that I don't think He's calling you to be a police officer. What? Yeah. Do you have a reason? Yeah, Adam, just looking at paperwork for one, I just think you're too nice and sensitive. Now maybe the ladies in here are like, oh, that's nice. The guys are like, yeah. And especially as a 19-year-old guy, and Michael's 19 years old, so he knows, and Devin's almost 19, so if somebody told you you're too nice and sensitive, you'd be like offended. Like, no, I'm a manly guy. What? No, I'm not sensitive at all. Let's go wrestle a bear. All right, so that was insulting to me. And I was insulted. If you talk to Latrice to this day, she'll still tell you, Adam, you were mad at me. And I tend to wear my emotions on my sleeve. I tried to hide it that I was mad, but no, I was mad. I'm like, how dare you? I barely know you. What do you mean I'm too nice and sensitive? And Adam, another thing, you're obviously a people person. You love people. You like people to like you. You're a people pleaser. Adam, do you realize, I don't know if you've thought about this much, people hate cops. The vast majority of people hate cops, even non-criminals. When a soccer mom gets pulled over for speeding, she hates cops. People don't like cops. So the majority of your day is going to be spent with people that hate you. That's going to be tough for you, Adam. And Adam, this is horrible to think about, but if you ever had to shoot someone in the line of duty, I think you'd really struggle with that. No, when I would just cap him in the knee, it'd be no problem at all. I can handle this. What are you talking about? It'd be no problem at all. And she's like, no, Adam, I think you really would struggle with that. And that's why I don't think this is where God's called you at all. Adam, I know you're kind of upset right now, I can see it, but I'm going to go on to shock you further, okay? There's another thing God told me, okay? All your test results and intrinsic skills and motivations line up perfectly with that of a pastor. Now, I wish, looking back, I could say, Eureka! Thank you, Latrice. God, what was I thinking? Thank you, Latrice. Yes. No, I was angry again. I was like, pastor? That wasn't even on my maybes list. What? God told you that? He's not telling me? What? Are you kidding me? And I don't know why, because I had a great youth pastor when I was in high school, but all I could think of in my head was this overweight white guy with a navy blue blazer shaking a Bible from a pulpit. I'm like, I'm not seeing this. I'm not seeing this. I don't get this. And Latrice said in the closing of the meeting was, Adam, all I can ask you is just please don't go into the ministry just because I told you to. That shouldn't be a problem. Thank you. But Adam, also, can you promise me that you'll pray about this to see this is where God is leading you? Yeah, Latrice, I can. I'll pray about this. All right, thank you. And that's, have a Merry Christmas. Oh, thanks. Yeah, just thanks. You just ruined my Christmas. Thank you. I had all the plans all set, and I just thrown everything up. I remember walking out of her door, walking off her steps outside her door, looking up to God and being like, God, what the heck was that? What in the world? I thought you were leading me to be a police officer. I thought you had this great plan. And now I meet somebody who I barely know who says that you spoke to her and that you're speaking this truth, your truth to me. I've never had that happen before. This doesn't happen to me. What in the world was that? And I knew I had two paths to take. I could either say, you know what? Latrice wasn't speaking for God. I know myself better than Latrice. And I know what God wants me to do. He wants me to be a cop. Forget Latrice. But then there was another path I could take, which was, this makes no sense to me. I don't see this. This isn't my plan. But Lord, if you want me to do this, I'm willing to do it, but you need to show me that this is your will for my life. And obviously, unfortunately, that's the path I took. And then I changed my major to Christian ministries. The next year I started serving in youth ministry at a local church in Indiana, in high school ministry, loved it, and started to find my calling. And it wasn't, I didn't hear any voices or anything like that. Like, every pastor has a different calling story, how God called you to ministry. Some people hear voices, something like, when I was 12 years old, walking in my grandpappy's cornfield in Iowa, I heard the Lord speak to me in a voice just like you, as clear as you sitting right there. Billy, I want you to be a preacher. And that's great. I didn't hear any voices. There was nothing like that. This is what it was like, though. In December of 2001, when I met with Latrice, I was looking this way and looking at it and saying, God, pastor thing, this ministry thing, I don't see this. I don't see it. And over the course of that next message, praying that prayer every day, Jesus, if you want me to do this, I will. I'm willing to follow your will, but you need to show me. It's like God took me by the shoulders, slowly but surely turned me around 180 degrees. Like the Bible says, his desire became my desire. I could start to see it. Yes, God, I can see this now. Okay. And I can tell you with conviction here today, in 2014, looking back all those years, over a decade back in the past, all through my ministry experiences, all the way from graduating from IWU, moving out to California to attend seminary, working at a bunch of awesome churches in youth ministry. I just celebrated my 10th anniversary in youth ministry. I can tell you with 100% conviction and honesty that there's not a single other job I'd rather be doing in my life. This is my calling. Why is that? Now, I could be making a lot more money. I could be a lot more famous. Could be a lot more, a lot more success by the world's idea in other areas, in other jobs. But I can tell you that this is the job that I want to be in, nothing else, because I am completely in the middle and center of God's will for my life. And there's no better place to be. Another one of my favorite verses, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Write it down. It says this, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Not 99% of your heart. 100%. All your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do. In all you do. And he will show you which path to take. Just like my calling story. This is a picture of me with one of my good friends, Sam Hershek. He's a student leader in our high school ministries, a senior at Glacier Peak. This is a picture taken from our Journey to Bethlehem Christmas program that he was one of my soldiers in. On Wednesday night, Sam suffered a major heart attack. And he almost died. It was touch and go for a while. And on Thursday, when I was putting together this message to you, he was in a coma. They didn't know what would happen in his life. If he'd be brain dead, if he'd even walk again, whatever. They didn't know. They had no idea. And I was really messing me up. I told Liz, our preschool director, that I couldn't even focus on the sermon. But I knew God wanted me to share this story, and Sam, I know, would be privileged to hear that I'm sharing the story. And it profoundly affected me as I was writing this message. I'm like, man. Because Sam is a guy who's just recently found Jesus, accepted, given his life to Jesus. He's going all in with Jesus. He's growing a ton in his faith. In fact, Pastor Brian, Pastor Cham, and I have all seen giftings in Sam that could be possibly leading him to be a pastor himself one day. He's going all in. He's following Jesus' plan. And actually, just a couple hours before he had his heart attack on Wednesday night, me and my brother were talking to him right before Eager Groups. He was all excited, talking about how he committed to a college and he was going to get a scholarship to play soccer there in college. And he was so excited. My brother played college soccer, so he was talking with him about it. He was all excited about these plans. In an instant, everything changes. We don't know if he'll ever play competitive soccer again. Yesterday, Sam woke up from his coma. Praise Jesus. He's still himself, still Sam. Very hopeful for him. But who knows if he'll play soccer? We don't know. plans change. And a lot of people are asking, hundreds of people are asking. Glacier Peak, everybody at school wore a color for him, and they were taking pictures. Everybody was taking pictures for him and writing on Twitter to say for him, for hashtag pray for Sam. It was really cool. I remember thinking on Thursday, and we didn't even know what was going to happen. He was still in a coma. I remember thinking, God's going to use this for his glory. Don't know how. Don't know how. Don't even know if Sam's going to recover. God's going to use it somehow for his glory. Because people are asking, why? Why would God allow it for a great, nice guy like Sam, somebody who's following, going on with Jesus? Why would this happen? Why would God cause it to happen to him? Well, here's the first answer I would give. When things don't make sense, trust Jesus. People ask, why did God allow this to happen? My answer is, I don't know. I don't know. But God can turn this around for his glory. See, God's ways are not our ways. So just because something doesn't make sense to us, doesn't mean that God doesn't know what he's doing. We've talked before about finite minds, how we as humans have these finite, limited minds. We don't know everything. We don't have all the answers. We have finite, limited minds. But God has an infinite mind. He's infinite spirit. He's God. He has a perfect mind. He's all-knowing. He's omniscient. God is creator. We as humans are creation. And creation doesn't have the right to blame the Creator. We are sinners. God is perfect. And when we accept Jesus as our Savior, we go from being a slave to our sin nature to a slave to Jesus. And that's a good thing. That's a very good thing. I don't want to be a slave anyway. No. Following Jesus' plan is good because he sees the future. We don't. He wants what's best for us, as we've read in Jeremiah 29. That's a good thing to be safe in Jesus' arms, to be a slave to Jesus. And Jesus never promised that we would have an easy life when we make him Lord of our life. Ask Sam that. Never promised an easy life. In fact, Jesus said, if you want to be my follower, take up your cross and follow me. Harsh, but it's true. I care about you guys too much. I respect you too much to not to sugarcoat it. If you follow Jesus and go on for Jesus, your life's not going to be easy. Just telling you the truth. And making him Lord of our life, that's making him number one. That means when you make Jesus Lord of your life, you become a slave to him. He's number one. He's more important than anyone else in your life. More important than sports, more important than school, more important than your friends. Yes, even more important than your family and your parents. Jesus comes number one. That's what Jesus demands. To be a slave to Jesus, make him Lord of your life. There's no better place to be, like I just said in my story, to be in the center of God's will. But I can promise this, you won't have an easy life if you follow Jesus' plan. But it's so worth it. It's so worth it. And when people ask things, about Sam, why would God allow this to happen? Why would God cause this horrible thing to happen to a great guy like Sam who's trying to follow Jesus? Well, here's the thing. Jesus doesn't cause evil to happen. He's not the author of sin and evil. But he allows it for a reason. He is all-powerful. He's omnipotent. He's all-powerful. He could stop it, but he allows it for a reason and can bring good out of anything. Satan and sin are the author of evil. Satan, that's where it's... We live in a... Why would a guy like Sam, a great guy like that, why would he have a problem with his heart? Why would he have these health issues? Why would God cause them? No, that's not why. It's just sin in our world. Not Sam's sin. It's just that we live in a fallen, sinful, broken world. We have other students that are going through illnesses too in our ministry. It's not their fault. It's just sin in our world. We live in a fallen, broken world. Sin happens. Jesus is not the author of sin. He does not cause it. Don't believe that lie. But he does allow it for a reason. The Bible tells us that he can bring good out of anything. What Satan is meant for evil, God can bring good out of it. So J.High, let's bring it down to your level, personal for you. When something in your life falls apart, I promise you, unfortunately, it will. Someday, something in your life is going to fall apart. When it happens, though, my exhortation to you, as my students, is look to Jesus and ask him to reveal his plan for your life and do it. When trouble comes, instead of asking God, why God? Why would you do this to me? The mature believer's response is not, why God? But what, Lord? This stinks. This hurts. But what are you trying to teach me through this? What are you trying to teach me by allowing me to go through this tough time? What do you want me to do? When we follow God's will for our life, we are free to become the men and women He created us to be. Bow your heads, close your eyes. You're sitting in here today. We have visitors, so not everybody here has necessarily heard about Jesus before, has heard the gospel, the good news of Jesus. Well, here's the gospel. This is the most important news you can possibly hear. It's this. We've talked about this. We're sinners. We have this sin nature thing. Everybody's got it. When you're tempted to cheat on a test, you have a little whisper in your ear. You're like, oh yeah, I've had that. Yeah, we all have it. It's a sin nature. It's all inside us. We're all born sinners. But here's the thing. The Bible says that the penalty for being a sinner, which we all are, is death. That's eternal separation from God in hell. It's a real place of unimaginable suffering and pain where we don't want anyone to spend eternity, especially in this room. Our prayer is that no one in here spends an eternity in hell, separated from God forever. But the good news is that God decided not to leave us in our sin. The Bible tells us that 2,000 years ago, He sent His only Son, Jesus Christ, to be born as a human. He lived a perfect, sinless life. We are guilty. Jesus is innocent. But when He grew up to be a man, He chose to die a humiliating, excruciating death on a Roman cross for you. That cross had your name on it. That was your and my cross. We deserved the death. But Jesus took it in our place, even though He was the only one who was innocent. He died and suffered for you because He loves you. He doesn't want you to spend eternity in hell, but instead wants you to spend eternity with Him in heaven. And that's the good news, that the story doesn't end there. On the third day, the Bible tells us that God raised Jesus from the dead, defeating Satan and death once and for all, and ascended back into heaven, where today He's seated at the right hand of the Father in heaven in glory. He wants you to join Him there someday. But before you can, you need to say yes to Jesus and give your life to Him. Accept the penalty that He paid for you on the cross. And when you do that, His blood washes away the guilt of our sin. See, in our church, we make it very clear that just coming to church, just because you go to church doesn't mean you're a Jesus follower. That doesn't mean you're going to go to heaven. Just because your parents are Jesus followers, that doesn't mean you're a Jesus follower. Maybe that was okay when you were 4 years old, but you guys are old enough now to make your parents' faith your own. You need to say yes to Jesus for yourself. Maybe you did it when you were younger. Maybe somebody pressured you to do it, but it wasn't really your decision. You need to make the decision for yourself and say yes to Jesus to save you. If you want to do that today, and you're not sure about your salvation, you're not sure. Maybe you thought you were a Christian today, maybe you thought you'd go to heaven, but now you're not sure. Guess what? Being a good person isn't enough either. A lot of people in America believe that lie. I'm just a good person, so I get to go to heaven. Well, that's not true. None of us are good enough. We can't save